Hey, welcome back to Kidmin Talk. This is Karl Bastian coming to you from Kidology, and this is the 97th Kidmin Talk Podcast. And if you've been watching the last several episodes, you know I have changed up the format a little bit, so you may be watching this. The video, there's Craig Wilson sitting right there, just itching to equip and encourage you, or you may be listening on iTunes or on the website, as I've been doing now for several years. But either way, we are glad that you are here. Today we've got a great topic. We're going to be talking about getting outside the walls of the church. But first, I just want to give a big thank you to Discipler, who is sponsoring this podcast, a great one-stop shop where you can just get access to all kinds of curriculum, download it, give access to your teachers and volunteers. They can teach right from their iPads, right there in the classroom. Check it out, discipler.com. That's discipler.com. I think I did that right. It's like Discipler without the E. It's not a typo. It just didn't have a trademark on it, I think. But it's awesome, and it's worth checking out. So we're going to get going here. We're going to have a Kidmin Talk conversation with Kids Pastor, Kidmin extraordinaire, Craig Wilson. Hey, Craig, welcome to the show today.
Hey, thanks, Karl. I feel like I should have held out for 3 more, so I could have been the 100th. I feel a little ripped off.
I know that I should sell the 100th spot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I should do
I'd buy that.
But, it's kind of funny we're doing this on Skype. That just shows how lazy we are, because we're both here in Colorado. We could have got in the car. We could have met halfway. I'm a little jealous of you though, because you're a little closer to the mountains than me. So
yeah. I think we're just far enough apart where this was the right route to go.
Yeah, it's practical. Plus, how would we do it? We'd have to set up our laptops next to each other, and then we'd have sound interference. This is probably easier, ironically.
Yeah.
But anyway, hey, I'm glad you're here, guys. If you don't know Craig, you probably have benefited from some of the stuff that he's done. He's got some resources on Kidology. Some have been on there for a long time. Perhaps you've gotten his canned goods. Some really cool kids' church materials. I love these flash animation things that I've used them at camp, where there's superheroes on the screen and they're actually voice activated. The kids are screaming, the superheroes are going up and down and shooting. Those are really cool, and I'll put a link in the show notes. Can you tell them briefly how that came about? That's really cool.
Yeah, well, so the canned goods curriculum itself was birthed out of the idea of, we always found ourselves for VBS events, style events, or midweek stuff, or different things we were doing. We always found that we would purchase a curriculum, and there's way more in there that we need, because we always take the main framework and adjust it to what we're doing. So the canned goods was kind of just meant to be a framework, and because we know you're going to adjust it to who your congregation is, who your children's ministry is. But the one thing that we tried to throw in was just lots of bells and whistles. And I was really fortunate to have a partner who was just incredibly creative with flash animation and was able to create these interactive games. We had some interactive Bible trivia games that were very Cartoon Network, Nickelodeon vibe characters. But then these voice-activated games, those are the guys at Crowd Control. We worked with them to get the application to do it. I recommend checking out Crowd Control games as well. You can find more cool stuff like that there too. And but basically, think of it like having a giant room full of kids and having them voice activate characters.
It's really cool.
I think of the superhero one, way before Flappy Bird, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So like Flappy Bird, but voice activated.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Up and down.
And then you're one of these guys that, like you said, maybe takes the framework and then also just writes stuff on your own. And I have so many friends like you that write great stuff, and then I say, man, you got to get that on Kidology. And then they always say, oh, yeah, I want to. Or sometimes they tell me they will. I have some friends who have been promising me for 20 years that they're going to get stuff on Kidology. And you were the first guy that finally took me up on the concept of, dude, you don't need to get it ready for publishing. Just give us the skeleton, because creatives like me and so many listening, that's all they need. They just need the skeleton, maybe the graphics you created. And so we launched this DIY, do-it-yourself area on Kidology. and you've already got 3 on there, and there's a rumor you've got a 4th one coming. I won't put you on the spot on the podcast. But yeah, there's a build one.
Date to be determined.
Yeah, date to be determined. I should make you commit to something, but I won't do that. But you've got a whole Lego one on there, a whole glow-in-the-dark one, a spy theme one, and it's just kidology.org/DIY. But folks, that page was designed to not be just Craig's stuff, but really to be able to add others. So if you've just created some amazing VBS or outreach event, and there's a folder on your computer that's just got all that stuff in there, you can clean it up, take your church address off, your phone number off, kind of make it generic, but you don't have to get ready to sell. You don't have to explain it all. When you buy something published, you expect them to really have a leader's guide and training videos and all that. And the DIY idea is, no, we don't need all that because we're creative people. We know all that. We just want that raw, cool. Who's calling me right now? I'm recording a podcast. Mr. President, you'll just have to wait. So I usually throw those phones in the furnace room when I'm recording, and I totally forgot. So you'll just have to ignore that for a minute. And I won't even bother editing this out. So anyway, those are fantastic. But you're kind of a preteen guy too. You've done some work with preteens stuff in the past.
Yeah, like you, Carl, I'm a dinosaur. I've been at this a long time, and I can remember when my my boss and mentor years ago asked me to start a preteen ministry, and I was like, a what? Nobody was even using the word back then.
I remember we had to define that for people.
Yeah, I could only find one other group in California that was doing it, and got to hear them at a leadership conference and started that journey. I've been fortunate to do some work with Superstar, Patrick Snow, and contributed to the Leading Preteens book with Patrick Snow, and did some consulting with them when they were starting that conference. And those guys are top notch. They're the leading people in that stuff. But it's just always been a big passion of mine, that age group.
Fantastic. I should probably mention Gordon and Becky West wrote a book years ago on preteen ministry that was kind of cutting edge, and I think it's probably still available. So anyway, I asked you to come on the podcast. I want to do interviews with kids pastors that I know that have something to say. And they may or may not be known. I'm not targeting people who have an audience. I'm targeting people who have a heart for ministry, have years of experience, and have a passion. And I know many times when we've talked, I've just enjoyed our talk, sometimes out hiking. And here in Colorado, we've enjoyed some great conversations. And you mentioned one thing you would love to talk about is ministry outside the walls of the church. Today we hear so much about great facilities, and there's great companies out there now that will come in, and there's churches that, do incredible things to make the environments, that's a big word now, making the environment kid-friendly. And that's wonderful. I say, hey, if you can do that, do it. I'm not against that. But that presupposes children coming into the church. And as we all know, we're in a post-church culture, and getting families to actually come to church is a challenge. So we can have a multi-million-dollar, or maybe not multi-million, but an incredible facility. But if they never actually visit the church, what good is a facility that they never see? And so we've got to address, how do we reach those people so that they can come and see the amazing ministry that we've done. So talk to us a little bit about your journey and how you've done that, and take it away, man.
Right. Well, Carl, it was, I've always had that heart, and we've done things over the years, but it really just kind of started to come together when I arrived here at LifeBridge Christian Church about 6 years ago. And, we call ourselves an externally focused church. Pastor's written a book on that subject, and it really takes a different shape than everything else I've seen regarding ministry outside the walls of your church. A lot of times we do ministry outside the walls with an ulterior motive or kind of a bait and switch. Sometimes our mentality is like, oh, let's go into the school and we'll paint some fences and plant some flower gardens. But a lot of times we come back around and go, well, hey, remember all that stuff we did for you? Can we run a Bible study in your school? And I'm not suggesting, I don't mean that as a judgment. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But I think in the culture that we're in, it's a lot of times people out there in the community, their feelers are up. It's well, what are you after? What's your ulterior motive?
Yeah.
And I sometimes say, we say around here, love your neighbor because you're a Christian, not just because you want them to become one. So how are you making an impact on your community? And we would say here, if the doors of your church shut tomorrow, your church ceased to exist, would anybody in your community even care? And would they fight for you to stay open? Would you have made such an impact in your community that your school system and your social justices, your adoption agencies, that they would fight for you to stay open because you've made such a big impact in this community? So that's some of the ideas and ideals around the ministry here. But for me, you arrive here, I'm new, you got fresh set of eyes. And I remember coming into this place and my associate pastor asking me, hey, I know you've been checking things out. I'd like you to share at the next meeting with the leadership team, where you're heading, what kind of things you think you see. And I'm in typical, operation mode. I'm very much been a part of program churches and big events and all of those things and working with creative people. So I know how to do that. And I'm very visual as well. So when I got here, the low-hanging fruit was, oh gosh, this facility hasn't been updated in a long time. They don't have any branding. And I remember sitting in that meeting with the leadership team, and I'm all excited to share. I'm all geeked out and like, oh man, they're gonna love what I have to say. And you kind of get in that, like, oh man, I'm gonna hear angel choirs behind me when I share my ideas, and they're gonna be like, wow, what did we do without Craig? Thank goodness he's here. And I remember sharing all this stuff and things that I saw and things that I think we should do inside this facility. And then I stopped. And then it was just like quiet for a while. I mean, like crickets almost,
Wow.
Awkward silence. And I'm just waiting going, oh man, what, starting to sweat a little bit. And a guy named Brian Mavis, who kind of heads our externally focused stuff, he speaks up and he says, hey, Craig, he says, I love everything you're talking about. I don't have any issues. I think it's great. I even think we should do all of that. And that's great, Craig, for the 300 or 400 kids that are coming here on the weekend. But what about the thousands of kids in this community that are never going to walk through these doors? And I went home that night. Carl, I might have been up for a week, like just every night, just pondering that. Like it just weighed heavy on me. And it just really captured my heart and started to readjust the way that I'm thinking through children's ministry. And it's not a matter of one or the other, right? It's both. It's both but it's sometimes it was just one of those things that just gave me that reprogramming and reprogramming that I needed. Because and even from the sense of we spend a lot of time on the stuff in here thinking that that's what's going to bring people in.
Yeah.
Do a lot of that stuff. And I'm not suggesting that it doesn't or that it can't. I think that it does. But even with that, there's a lot that never will. And so we have to be thinking both of those. And for us, a lot of the stuff we do outside is, okay, how is it making an impact in your community?
Before we get to what that resulted in, I want to share with you and our listeners what changed my thinking. When most children's pastors have heard George Barna's book, the Raising Spiritual Champions book. It's a super long title, but it's a great book. And we loved it because we've always known the stats on most people become to Christ as a child. But he was the first one to kind of substantiate that with some scientific research. And so we could put that book, in our pastor's hands. And before the book came out, our whole pastoral staff went to a Barna conference. And it was great because first he did a worldview seminar about the declining worldview in the church. And then he did a children's ministry conference about how important children's ministry was. And then he did two others. But at the final session, at the beginning of the children's ministry seminar, Barna walked up to the podium, and that book wasn't out yet. And he just stood there silently. And it got kind of awkward because we're all waiting for him to start talking, and he just stood there. And everyone's kind of looking around. And then he did the coolest thing. He said, I'd like you pastors to put away your sermon prep. And then more awkward silence. He said, I'm serious. Put away your sermon prep. Do it. Well, then there was this rustle of paper throughout the whole room. And I got chills down my spine. He says, you thought you were going to work on your sermons during this session on kids ministry. And then he was kind of ticked. And he said, I've had pastors call me and wanted me to move the children's ministry session to 4th so they could leave early. And he said, I had senior pastors call me wanting a 25% discount because they didn't want to pay for a work seminar on children's ministry. And he said, but it's second for a reason. He said the first session was on a declining worldview in the church. And the second session's on kids ministry because that's where the solution is, you know. And then he unpacked it from there, and it was great. He went through all the stats, and of course I was feeling really good, like, hey, because I'm the kids pastor, and I don't know if I was the only one there or not. So we went back, and it was kind of awkward in the car because I kind of felt like my ministry got puffed up, you know. Well, my youth pastor came to me a couple days later, and he was very respectful, and he said, you know, hey, I really appreciated what Barna said, but he said, I want to push back a little bit if you don't mind. And he said, this isn't a contest. This isn't kids ministry versus youth ministry. He says, we both have our calling and they're both valid. But he said, I do want to ask you a question. And I said, sure, shoot away, Jim. And he said, in the youth ministry, he gave me a list of names of teenagers. He said, this is a list of the teenagers that have come to Christ in the last year from unchurched families. And there was 100 of them. And he said, I'm just curious. And he said again, and he really bent over backwards to say this was not a contest. He was not judging the kids ministry. This wasn't I'm better than you, or youth ministry is better than kids ministry. And I appreciated his spirit. So nobody jump on him. But he said, can you give me a list of kids who have come to Christ in the last year who are not in Christian homes? And I said, I don't know. And he said, because my contention is most of the kids who come to Christ at church would have come to Christ anyway. You know, because they're in a Christian home. Mom and dad probably would have prayed with them. You know, the parents are doing the foundation laying. They're bringing them to church. And so he said there's a little bit of feather in the cap for kids ministry, that the feather really belongs to the parents. And and so he said, I'm just curious, you know, if there's any kids out there, those thousands that you're talking about, who you're leading to Christ, that otherwise would not have known Christ. And so I took that to my team, and I said, you know, Jim's made a challenge, and I think it's a fair challenge because it's a kingdom challenge. It's, you know, the same thing. It's not youth ministry versus kids ministry. It's kingdom. And I said, how many names can I go back to Jim with? And we went over our stats and our valuations and our salvation cards because, you know, Baptist churches really fill out their salvation cards. And I wasn't at a Baptist church, but, you know, we have those stats. But anyway, we had none. We couldn't come up with one kid that had come to Christ through our ministry. And so it totally changed how we did ministry. And before I get into how that changed us, I just thought that's good to share because that pastor gave you a great challenge. That's great for the kids to come, but again, they're coming by and large. The kids don't drive to church, you know. They're not walking to church. In an inner city ministry, they may be. Our church has an inner city location that, by and large, the kids are walking there. It's awesome, but they're coming with parents who at least are spiritually interested, if not saved. But I appreciated his thing going, how are you reaching kids who otherwise would never come to know Christ? And it's a powerful question. So what did that look like? How did that change what you did? I mean, obviously you still have a fantastic Sunday morning ministry. I've been up there as a guest. I've seen what you do. It's amazing.
Yeah, you know, here's the good news. Because this is already externally focused church, there's some things that were community oriented that are already happening that now I get to be part of and help champion. We partner with an organization called Kids Hope USA. I know there's other organizations that do this, but it's connecting in your schools, providing one-on-one mentors for at-risk kids in the school. For some of those kids, it's the best hour in their life that week.
Is that a nationwide ministry or local?
It is nationwide. Yeah, Kids Hope USA is nationwide.
Well, send me a link later, and I'll put that in the show notes.
Yeah, definitely will. And but I think somebody here sought out that organization to help run from a heart that they had to get in. If I go back to when I talk about when we go to schools and say, oh, we'll come and paint some fences, and that needs to be done. But I would challenge you that if you went to your school superintendent or the principal at a school or the district and you asked them, what is your number one issue here or number one need? And from the standpoint of, hey, let's see if we can help. It's probably not going to be paint fencing or planting a garden.
Yeah.
Probably it's going to be much deeper than that. They've got, real issues that they're not getting help with. And so we've got close to 200 mentors one-on-one in a school with a kid that's deemed at risk for social or academic or from all different kinds of backgrounds. Kids with parents in prison, kids with, really crummy home situations. And it's 1 hour a week helping that kid, meeting at the school on the property for the whole year. What we've seen now, I've mentored kids myself too. What you do with a lot of them is moving up all the way through their elementary years if you start with them young. And we've even seen now we're able to expand in our district to middle school. Some of the middle schools are allowing it, and we're working next on moving on to high school with some of these kids, that long-term mentoring. And, the challenges there, are because it's public school, being able to outright in that environment talk straight up about Jesus. And we've had some people challenge us on that. We had somebody that asked one of our pastors, like, why are we going to do this if we're never going to get the chance to, talk out loud about Jesus with them? And one of our pastors kind of gracefully admonished him to say, you know what, you're right. I can't guarantee you that if you do this, that you'll ever get that opportunity to speak out loud about Jesus to this kid. But if you don't come and love on this kid and mentor this kid, I can guarantee you never will.
Yeah.
And what's great about this organization is that it's a faith-based organization, so it does set up prayer partners for you. It's all the boundaries are set up in school, but at the end, a lot of parents give permission to continue to see a mentor over the summer. There's rules and boundaries set up there for protection of kids and everything, so everything's done in groups. But we can see kids coming into our church events from that.
That attitude of what do you need? When I was in Barrington, Illinois, we had a school almost across the street from the church. So I went and met with the principal, and I just said, hey, I'm the children's pastor over here at the Village Church. A lot of my kids go to your school. We have some similar concerns. Obviously, we're focused on their spiritual development. You're focused on their educational development, but there's overlap. Is there some way I can help meet your needs? And he said, well, honestly, our biggest issue that we're not addressing well, and this was in the late 90s, was he said, just educating them on the dangers of drugs and alcohol, And he said, could you do an assembly on that without using the Bible? I said, absolutely. Mm-hmm. So I wrote a show, and I called it Be Wise, Avoid Lies. And it was amazing because I talked about how there is a plan for your life, how you were created for a reason, and I used my puppet Gus and I used object. It was like kids' church, but it was all truth. And it was all God's truth. I didn't reference the Bible, but you know what? As I went in there and served, and then I started, they needed lunch moms. I became a lunch mom. And I'd show up with the chicken nuggets, and the kids at my church would sit. Well, I broke down the stereotype of what a pastor was. And then they would hear the kids talking about outreaches and things we're doing at church, Halloween things and fall fest and stuff like that. And I had the principal ask me, well, hey, can we send home flyers with all the kids? And I experienced no separation of church and state because I would end up bringing flyers over. And I'd say, well, we're doing a fall fest. It's kind of a Halloween alternative, a safe place for kids and families. And, we weren't preaching the gospel at that was a bridge building event. So he'd say, we'll send a flyer home with every kid. And then the families would come to the church It didn't start with me going over there and saying, "Hey, I've got an event at the church. Would you pass out flyers to the kids?" Because they would have said no,
Yep.
But he actually asked me for the flyers.
Yep, it's bridge building, it's meeting the need, it's letting them see that you actually care about the community. And it's not, if they sniff out that, oh, you're only doing this because of this, that's just that, hey, love these people. Let them know that's genuine. And those relationships will build and form, over time. And the impact this is having on the schools here, their teachers throw us celebration parties and thank you parties, and we get, notes and things back from them about the impact that we're having in the schools there. So that's pretty phenomenal, thing that's happening. We live, Carl, here, we're Boulder County. Boulder, was voted a couple years ago. I think it tied for first, maybe with Portland, as least religious city in the nation.
Yeah.
So dealing with people that in a culture that aren't interested in coming to church. Some of the other things we've done, Carl, and part of our initiatives too, we've been chasing and kind of following and developing this neighboring initiative, which is what does Jesus say are the two most important things: love Lord your God. And the second is equal, love your neighbor as yourself. And we've been doing, there's a lot of churches kind of picking up on this. It seems so simple. I think one of the things what we've done over the years is we take that passage and we make everybody our neighbor, right? Well, my neighbor is, it's the person at my work and my sports team and the person over in Uganda. And so by making everybody our neighbor, then sometimes nobody's our neighbor. Yeah. So we've kind of really narrowed it down to, we've done this, we called it a sheet of shame. And it was like, we asked people can you name your neighbors across from you and to your right and to your left and behind you, or within 5 or 6 houses? Can you name their names, their kids, what they do for a living? The results were anemic. It was a failure, right? Wow. And so we're like, how are we engaging? We have people who don't know Jesus potentially all around us where we live, and we're pulling into our garages and shutting them and never engaging those people. Yeah. So those are things that when I got here, we were starting to wrestle with as well. So some practical ideas. We, like a lot of churches, we run the big Easter egg hunt here.
Yeah. I was going to ask you about your Easter egg. Yeah. I love this.
Yeah, this to me was a great idea. So we've been running the Easter egg hunts here, and you get 1,000 people from the community, and it's glorious Easter chaos, and and then they go, and you try follow up, and you try those things, and there's some success on that, and I know we like to say, well, if just one comes back, it was worth it, and I was twitching at the end of it. The money and the people and the time resources.
There might be an easier way to reach one person. Maybe I'll just go invite my neighbor to church.
Yeah. So, but what we did was kind of a handhold to help people with this. We canceled our Easter egg hunt here, which, sacred cow, you're going to take it on the chin for that. But we moved our egg hunts to the neighborhood, and we created this Easter egg kit. Neighborhood Easter egg kit, and that was just kind of a way to have something physical to help them with that. Yeah. We got so many eggs in it. We got candy donated. There was an egg dye kit and a generic template for an invitation. And the goal was, hey, do this in your neighborhood. And for some of you, that might just be inviting a couple houses next to you. Some of you might live somewhere with a common green space, and you're going to get 30 houses and talk to everybody. Some of you might run up to the school, but this is not us coming and planning this for you. This is you engaging your neighbors. It's not programmed and doing this. And what was cool, Carl, was the first year we had over 800 people engaged in the neighborhood egg hunts all over our
How many egg hunts did you do?
I'd have to go back and look to see. I want to say maybe 30, 40, or 50. Wow. And some of them were small, and some of them were huge, right? So some of them was just, hey, just our neighbors next door came to our backyard. And some of them were we did it in our green space, and there was 80 people there. So the thing is that there was almost just as many people as if we had held it here at the church. But the win was people were engaging, and the stories and testimonies we had come back were just awesome. We talked to neighbors that we haven't talked to in 5 years.
Yeah.
We engage with neighbors that we've lived here 12 years and never spoken a word to them. And then people are asking, what are we going to do next? Let's get together for 4th of July. So it's bridge building. Right? And it's empowering our people to do it.
And that's what we ended up doing. Our children's ministry team, we got together and we said, okay, how do we reach the unchurched kids? And I always preface, I'm not anti-VBS. VBS is great. If you do VBS, God bless you. But my evaluation, or our team's evaluation, was that VBS was not successful as an outreach. And we decided that doesn't mean it's a bad event. And we determined, and we came back to VBSs, but we decided our purpose of VBS was to create significant spiritual memories for kids. It was a bridge back to the church when they grow older and they get busy and they stray from the church and they become parents. VBS is that thing that will bring them back. As they'll become parents, they'll see a VBS in the neighborhood and they'll go, oh, I went to VBS as a kid. It was a blast. I'm taking my kid to VBS. So we actually viewed VBS as bridge building to the future. But when the youth pastor challenged us to reach unchurched kids, we said unchurched kids don't come to VBS. They used to. I think several decades ago, VBS was evangelistic. But I think we've gotten committed to a program and not why the program was created. And so we created what we called Backyard Bible Blasts. And I basically went to families in the church and we said, we're not doing VBS this year, but we will, I put together a team and said, all you need to do is give us your yard, invite your neighbors, we'll make the invite, and then you're the registration table as they come, you sign them in, greet them, and then I'll bring the program. And the first year, I made it so easy, I came myself, I did a magic show, I did Gus, it was like, mini kids church in your yard, I led games, I had my kids crew come, and I had some adult helpers, and then we did those all summer in yards. Same thing. We went from 80% of the kids that came to them were unchurched kids. Then we did a fall outreach, kids crusade, built a castle with a drawbridge and got the youth group doing the band, and I did a big magic show, and we had dramas and everything. And during that 3-day fall outreach, we invited everybody. Boy, I really did turn all my stuff off. Right.
Carl, this is unprofessional. I don't know if
I'm
going to come back for you.
Yeah, I was going to have you for the 100th. Now I won't. So, but anyway, we had 93 kids get saved during those 3 days. Yeah. And I was able to go back to our youth pastor with a sheet. I didn't hit the 100, but we went back with 93 kids that were unchurched that came to Christ. And it was awesome. So the next summer, we did Backyard Bible Splashes. And I went into Costco one day. They had this giant inflatable water slide with water cannons. And I was thinking, man, every kid that comes into Costco is like, Dad, buy that for me. And I'm thinking, right. Dad's like, I ain't buying that for you. A, it's $900. B, it's going to destroy my lawn. And so I got my pastor to let me buy that thing. And we promoted that for one day, we'll bring that to your yard. And with that year, no magic show. We just did water games. And I actually didn't do like a gospel message. We did like God loves you, He's a plan for your life. But my theory was I don't want my kid to go to a neighbor's house to play and come home and say, hey, I'm Muslim, Dad. I would feel betrayed, Mm-hmm. And so I want them to come to the people's houses and feel like that trust was not violated. But when we invite them to church as a follow-up event, hey, you come on the church property, we're going to share what we believe. So likewise, I'll send some of my son's best friends are Mormon, and we trust that when they're over there playing, they're not trying to convert him. But we respectfully decline invitations to church events because we know that if he goes to their church, then that's where they're going to try to make a Mormon out of him, and we know that, and we respect that. And so we want to honor that in reverse. So we did these Backyard Bible Splashes, and same thing. We had all kinds of kids that were unchurched come to Christ in our follow-up outreaches. So I'll post a link to pictures in the show notes to our Water Wars and our Backyard Bible Blasts, because I've got a page on my blog with all the pictures. But it's fun. So what's some of the results that you've seen in doing this? You've mentioned some of them already.
Yeah, I think for some of it, for us, and we've been stumbling through, we've been in an environment allowed to, risk and fail for some of this. So some of the challenges with that, I'll first say this, all of those, we built a lot of things around the holidays for people to engage in their neighborhoods, right? And this is just around, rather than looking and saying, what events are we doing here, trying to get them come, and then also not us coming to a neighborhood. We're not coming to your neighborhood. You are your neighborhood.
Yeah, we had people calling the church office wanting to know where our events were, and we said the only way to find out is if the host of that church, of that home, invites you, because we'd have families team up. But I said we're not publishing locations, because this isn't people visiting them. The only way to know, they were top secret. But if the Blackwells invite you to theirs, then you'll know when and where it is. But otherwise, it's their outreach.
Yeah. And what we didn't want is that it's pastors coming in and just programming there. This is you taking initiative and doing this. So we put out a lot of stuff around holidays, simple things. Inviting people over for cookie decorating party. Halloween, instead of doing the large carnival event here, it's we felt like we're pulling people out of neighborhoods. Where they could be engaged.
Yeah, I remember a blog post last year. A guy said all the Christians' homes are dark on Halloween night when they ought to be a light.
Yeah, and I'm not and I stopped short of saying I've read some articles where they're like, this is wrong and you shouldn't be doing this. It's okay. You know what? There's people that are doing the carnival thing and having great success at it. Every community is different. Every church is going to be different. So there's people that are going to do the big carnival and have great success and see good results. And for us, our results are harder to measure because we're talking about long-term building relationships. But then the challenge is that we need to start getting those people to turn conversations towards Christ and towards, those things. And so it's not quick results on those things. The other thing, Carl, a little bit of a challenge, like even with the Easter egg hunt, it's kind of hard to be sustainable, right? Like we did it for 3 years holding their hands, but it's kind of one of those goals that you hope it becomes part of their DNA that they start to do it. But what we're wrestling with is, well, what's the cycle to bring new people into that where we do need to hold their hand, through that. And we haven't given up on events, too. We still do events. We see value and we see people coming to those just in our community, not in large numbers. So we're trying to, an event might be a follow-up because you
get committed to the event and not the reason you did the event. The important thing, often people want to know what other churches do and they want to do what that church did. Like, I'm sure some are going to do your Easter egg idea because they heard it here. That's fine, and that's great. But the important thing is to go, how are we going to reach the lost outside our church, and how are we going to equip our people to reach their neighbors? And everybody's going to come up with different answers, because it's not a matter of the application of those questions can be as different as the church or the community that asks those questions. So, well, fantastic.
Some of that too is just how we communicate with our leaders. We say, look, it's semantics, and I don't get hung up on it when people say it. But when people say, "Oh, we love our kids, we love our life kids," it's like, no, we love kids. Right? Let's remember that we love kids. So if you're here and part of our children's ministry team because you love kids, then that means you love the kids in your neighborhood too, and the kids on your sports team and those things. And so how are you constantly thinking through the eyes of the kid, whether it's your neighborhood, community, school, whatever that is, who doesn't know Christ? Yeah, amen. How are you engaging them?
Good. Well, good questions. I hope people will take time to ponder them. I always end with 2 questions. Of my guests to try to get them to listen to the end, because this is the juicy stuff. So real quick, one recruiting tip, because everyone always needs recruiting help. What's one thing that you do to get new volunteers? Because we're always short on volunteers. We always need help. What's one of your aces up your sleeve?
I curl up in the fetal position and rock and cry. And just cry out to the Lord.
All right. Great. I think they know that one, though.
They know that one. Okay. Yeah. Man, the thing, Carl, is I say, man, it takes everything and try everything. But one of the things for us comes from the value of you recruiting people to something important and valuable. And we think that our own people are our best recruiters, because they know why are you here? Why do you come every week and do this? Like, they keep showing up. It's crazy, right? So we want them to tell the stories to people they know. So one of the things, just a simple practical thing, is we've got, the little coffee shop here. So we'll hand out coupons, 2 coupons for free coffee. And we say, hey, somebody in your small group or in your circle of people here that you think might be great at this. And so we'd like you to take these free coffee coupons, invite them to meet you before or after a service, and just sit with them and share with them the why. Tell them the why you do this. And every week I get to hang out with these kids and love on them. And I see a kid who's afraid of whatever, and I get to share with them that he doesn't have to be afraid because God's bigger than that. And so share the why. And then invite them, and say, hey, I'm not asking you to sign on a dotted line, but man, I think you would be great at this working with me, and I'd love for you to come and observe. So that's just a simple, practical thing.
Cool. I like that. Awesome. And if you don't have a coffee shop in your church, we know that Jesus drank coffee because the Bible says he brews.
Correct. That is correct. Right? He brews.
Yes.
So give them Starbucks cards. Meet anywhere.
Absolutely. All right. Second one. What's one of your secrets for staying healthy in ministry and surviving kids ministry? It's one of the toughest ministries in the church, so demanding. There's always fires to put out, and many sadly burn out. So how you've been doing this a long time. You're a dinosaur, you said. So
I'm old.
You're not extinct. How have you kept from going extinct yet?
So, Carl, my answer is the same. I curl up in the fetal position and rock and crap the Lord.
Is that sucking your thumb, too?
That's sucking my thumb, yeah. I forgot. People listening didn't see that, but, yeah, I was sucking my thumb. No, for me, Carl, and it's, disciplines are tough for me. And so I try to carve out, I take Wednesday mornings, I try and carve out 2 hours. It's just short of non-negotiable. That I don't come into the office. I don't stay at home either. I'm too easily distracted. So I need, for me to have a time where I am immersed in just prayer and God's word and undistracted, I have to get out and away. I have to be, because, like I said, squirrel, that's me, Yeah. So I'm fortunate where I'm at to be in a pretty beautiful place. I can drive, Car's going to turn red as I say this. I can drive 10 minutes up the way and literally be like creekside with, babbling brooks, or I can be at a lake or up in the mountains pretty fast. And so I try and set aside that time to go do that, shut the phone off, bring my Bible, and I'm praying, doing a lot of praying, and then reading God's word. There's no agenda. I'm not bringing work stuff with me. If anything work related is just praying for my staff, praying for my volunteers, praying for the kids, those kind of things. And
you're living out the principles of Mark 1:35. Very early in the morning, while it was still dark, Jesus got up. So you got to do it. You got to get up. He went away. He got away from everything. Found a solitary place. So that's, isolation, where he prayed. And not everyone can get up very early in the morning before it's dark. We're all wired differently. But that getting up, doing it,
that's the
getting
part
away,
I don't do.
Yeah, the solitude and the prayer. And if Jesus needed that, and if you look at the next chapter of Mark, the next day was an incredibly busy day. So he knew he needed that because he anticipated the ministry schedule that was ahead of him. And he did that. So, well, fantastic. Craig, thanks for your time. Thanks for all that you've done to invest in others, equipping, encouraging others, for the difference you're making in kids up there, not just at Life Bridge, but in the community up there. I love what you said. If your church went out of business, would the community notice? Would they miss you guys? And we didn't talk about it, but, there was some severe flooding up in your area a while ago, and tell me if I get this right. The Red Cross showed up, and when they got there and they saw how much your church was doing, they redirected their resources elsewhere. Is that right?
Yeah, that was pretty amazing. We're man, there's some just really amazing people on the staff here, and they showed up and they were like thinking that they were going to have, a church is managing this, because we were hosting National Guard, search and rescue, and we were the main evacuation center. And Red Cross, I think, came down thinking we're going to have to set everything up. And they got here and they looked and said, we would do it different, but I don't think we would do it better. And so they just left and said, we're going to direct our resources elsewhere. And, and that was community effort too, not just our church. That's one of the things too in this community is that we work with other churches and everybody jumps in and pitches in. So that was a pretty difficult time through here, and we were just fortunate to help be a lighthouse for some people.
But what a testimony that what you're sharing is not theory and concept. It's something your church is doing, and you are part of the community, and you're making a big difference. And so it's awesome. So thanks for sharing.
Yeah, hey, thanks, Carl. Thank you for your ministry, and thank you mostly for your friendship. That's been one of the coolest things. Carl and I, we met long time ago at a children's pastors conference.
Yeah.
When I had for my curriculum, and you've just been a big champion for me and support for me. And then, man, when I got to move here to Colorado 6 years ago, it's been cool because we've been able to we need to do more hiking, right?
We do.
I've been able to have you out and do some awesome ministry for our events and things, and so you've been a huge blessing to us. So appreciate your friendship more than anything, bud.
Cool deal. Well, thank you, Craig, for joining us. Folks, thanks for listening. Hey, I love to hear from you guys, whether it's Twitter at Kidologist or Kidmin Talk. You can always drop me an email, carl@kidmintalk.com. Those do go directly to me. And hey, if I can't come visit your church, check out the video training. I'd love to just Skype with your volunteers and equip and encourage them in that way. So until next time, this is Carl and Craig, and keep on keeping on.